There is a man. He has been awake for 36 hours. He is sitting in a chair inside a room he has never seen before. He does not know your name. He does not know your face. He has never met you in his life. But right now, in this moment, he knows exactly what you are afraid of. He knows the one thought you have never said out loud to anyone. He knows the decision you have been avoiding for months. He knows the specific memory from your childhood that you buried so deep you almost convinced yourself it never happened. He knows all of it. And he learned it without ever speaking a single word to you. That is not a superpower. That is not magic. That is a real documented psychological technique so powerful that governments banned it, scientists buried the research, and the man who discovered it died before he could tell anyone the full truth about what he had found. What you are about to hear is not a theory. It is not an opinion. These are real experiments, real human beings, and real results so disturbing that the institutions behind them spent decades trying to make sure you would never find out. Most people go their entire lives without knowing this information exists. And once you understand it, you will never look at your own mind the same way again. In 1971, a psychologist named Philip Zimbardo took 24 completely normal college students, screened, tested, confirmed psychologically healthy, and split them into two groups. Half became prisoners. Half became guards inside a fake prison built in the basement of Stanford University. No weapons were given. No orders about how to behave. No script of any kind. Within 36 hours, something happened that nobody in the history of psychology had ever documented before. The guards began doing things that no human being should be capable of inventing on their own. Sleep deprivation. Psychological humiliation. Systematic isolation. Methods that professional torturers use. Methods that take years to develop inside real intelligence agencies. These were 22-year-old students. They had been regular people 2 days ago. And now they were operating with a precision and a cruelty that looked less like improvisation and more like they had unlocked something that was already inside them, waiting. Something that all of us carry but never talk about. That is where this story gets genuinely terrifying. Because the guards were not the only ones who changed. By day 2, the prisoners had organized a full rebellion. They screamed. They fought. They barricaded the doors. The guards retaliated by stripping them naked, spraying them with fire extinguishers, putting the loudest voices in solitary confinement in a closet so small a grown man could not fully extend his arms. And here is the part that breaks everything you think you know about human loyalty. After the rebellion was crushed, the prisoners stopped trusting each other. The guards had told them, falsely, that some of them were informants. There were no informants. It was a lie. But the lie worked so completely and so quickly that within hours, men who had been fighting side by side were watching each other with suspicion. The prison had not just changed their behavior. It had rewired the way their minds processed reality. A lie told with authority became truth. And not one of them noticed it happening. By day 3, a prisoner had a complete psychological collapse. He was screaming and crying and shaking uncontrollably. The researchers watching through hidden cameras assumed he was performing, trying to get released early. They pulled him out of his cell and sat him down and spent over an hour trying to convince him that what he was feeling was not real. He was not performing. He was genuinely disintegrating. And the most chilling detail of that entire moment is not what happened to him. It is what happened to the other prisoners when they found out he had been let go. They did not feel relief. They did not feel hope. They felt betrayed. 6 days into a fake experiment, the prisoners had internalized the prison so completely that the idea of someone escaping it felt like a personal attack. The cage had moved from the basement of Stanford University into their own minds. And they had locked it from the inside. Zimbardo himself was not immune. He had assigned himself the role of prison superintendent. He was not watching the experiment. He was living inside it. When a colleague walked in, looked at the conditions, and said plainly that what was happening was unethical and needed to stop immediately, Zimbardo's first reaction was rage. Not concern. Not gratitude. Pure defensive anger, because she was threatening his prison. It took him an entire night of argument before he could access the part of his mind that was still a scientist and not a warden. The experiment was designed to run 2 weeks. He shut it down after 6 days. Not because he wanted to, because someone from outside the system could see what someone inside it could not. Now hold that thought and go back 10 years earlier, because there is a second experiment that Zimbardo never talks about in the same breath as his own, and the reason he doesn't is because together they form a conclusion so dark that most people's minds reflexively reject it. In 1961, a Yale psychologist named Stanley Milgram brought ordinary people into a lab one at a time and gave them a simple instruction: you are going to help us test the effect of punishment on memory. There is a person in the next room. Ask them questions. When they get an answer wrong, press this button. The button delivered an electric shock. It started at 15 volts. It went up to 450 volts. At 300 volts, the person in the other room went completely silent. At 450 volts, the panel simply read 3 letters, XXX. Before the study began, Milgram asked a group of psychiatrists how many participants they expected would press that button all the way to the end. The psychiatrists said 1%, maybe 2. The kind of person who would do that, they said, was genuinely rare. A statistical outlier. Almost certainly someone with an undiagnosed personality disorder. The actual number was 65%. Not 1%. 65. Nearly 2 out of every 3 completely ordinary people, people with families, people with jobs, people with their own moral codes and their own sense of right and wrong, pressed that button all the way to XXX because a man standing next to them in a white coat said 4 words, "Please continue." That was the entire mechanism. No threats. No consequences. No force of any kind. Just 4 words delivered with quiet authority. And 2/3 of the human race folded. The person in the other room was an actor. The shocks were not real. But the people pressing the button did not know that. Some of them were visibly shaking. Some were laughing the strange hollow laugh that comes out of a person when their body does not know how else to process what they are doing. Some were begging the experimenter to stop the session. And then they pressed the button anyway. The cruelty was not hiding in these people. It was not a secret darkness waiting for permission. It was manufactured in real time by a situation, a role, and 4 words from someone who appeared to be in charge. Which means the scariest thing about both of these experiments is not what they reveal about evil people. It is what they reveal about all people. Including you. Including me. Including everyone who has ever been absolutely certain they would have been the one who refused.